Okay guys, we're gonna be taking this test, practice test. I'm gonna show you how easy it is. So right here, we have the base 5 halves to the power of x, and we should remember the form y equals a times the base to the power of x, and then at the very end you have plus k. So that plus k is the plus whatever numbers out here, plus or minus whatever numbers out there. That tells you the asymptote. So what number's out there? Nothing, which means that the asymptote that you see right here, currently at -2, we need to move it up to 0. But if you try to move it up, it won't let you get there, right? You can move it up or down, but it won't let you get there because there's already a coordinate at 0. So first move this coordinate out of the way, then move this up to 0. And then after that, you could do an input-output table. I'll probably do an input-output table right here. And you're gonna plug in the easy number 0, right? And if you plug in the easy number 0 into the x, anything to the 0 power is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. So the input 0 gives you the output 2. So you take 1 point and move it to the location 0, 2, which is right there, right? 0 on the x, 2 on the y. And then after you plugged in 0, go ahead and plug in a 1 in there. And if you plug in a 1, that will be 5 halves times, because 5 halves to the 1 power is just 5 halves, and 5 halves times 2, when you multiply a fraction by its denominator, the fraction cancels out. So your answer is 5. So the input 1 gives you the output 5. So you take your point, you go to 1 on the x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the y, and that is your exponential growth function. Just hit submit, bottom left corner. Oh, you can't even see the submit, there it is. Hit the submit button right there, and you got yourself a correct answer. Let's move on. Next one, you see how this k value, the number out at the end, that is the number 2. So you need to take this asymptote and move it to the number 2. And of course, you're in the negatives right now, so move it up to 2. But as you can see, it won't let me get to 2. Why? Because it already has a point at 2. You need to get rid of that point. So I would move these points out of the way. Just move them up here just for a little while. Then move this up to 2. There it is. So your asymptote is at 2. Because the asymptote is the equation y equals k, in this case y equals 2. So that means you go to the y-axis, you draw a horizontal line right through the y value of 2. There's your asymptote. Now we need to plug in easy numbers like 0, and we're not doing it like we're doing it on paper. We're simply plugging in 0 and doing the entire math. So plug in 0 right here. 5 to the 0 is 1. It has a negative in front, so that's a -1. And -1 plus 2 is 1. So when you plug in 0, you get out a 1. So where's the location 0, 1? Well, 0, 1 is right here, and it's below the asymptote. So this guy just moves all the way down there, and now that point is at 0, 1. So now let's plug in the input 1, right? The input 1 will be the x value of 1. So plug in the x value of 1 into the x. And what will we have when you plug in a 1 right here? You have 5 to the 1, and 5 to the 1 with the negative in front is a -5. And then -5 plus 2 is -3. So when you plug in a 1, you get out a 3, a -3, that is. So we're going to go to the location 1 on the x, -1, 2, 3, and that is your graph. Submit. Moving on. Super easy. Start with the asymptote. Y equals k. In this case, y equals -1. So take this, which is at -2 right now, move it up to -1, and you're good. Now let's plug in, you can make an XY table, plug in the number 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1, and 1 times that a value 2, that's 2, right? 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 minus 1 is 1. So when you plug in 0, you get out a 1. So move that coordinate up to 1, right? It was a 0, 0, moved it up to 0, 1. By the way, if you're freaked out about this math, you could technically do it all on a calculator. Plug in the 0 right there into the whole thing, and it should give you 1 as an answer. After you plug in 1, go ahead and plug in, after you plug in 0, when you plug in 0, you get out a 1. After you plug in 0, plug in a 1. And when you plug in a 1, you're going to get 3 halves to the 1, which is just 3 halves, and you have the a value of 2, which is the same thing as the denominator, so that'll cancel out. That'll just leave you a 3, and then 3 minus 1 is 2. So when you plug in a 1, you get out a 2. So the location 1, 2, oh, what do you know? The point's already there. So we are done. This is our exponential growth function. Submit. Looking at this next one, let's plug in a 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 6 times 1 is 6. And 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay. So when you plug in a 0, you get out a 5. Go to 0, go to 5. And you know what? I forgot. We should do the asymptote. The asymptote is y equals -1. And right now, the asymptote is currently at -2. So let's move it up to 1. After that, after we plugged in a 0, now let's plug in a 1. 1/3 to the 1 is exactly 1/3. Then 1/3 times 3, that's like saying 6 divided by 3. And of course, you can do that on the calculator. 6 times 1/3 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So when you plug in a 1, you get out a 1. So go to the location 1, 1, take the second point, go to the location 1 on the x, 1 on the y, there it is. And you are done. Submit that answer. Got it right. Let's try another. The asymptote is 9. So take this guy, which is at -2, move it up to 9. Let's start by doing that first. That's easy. It's at 9 now. And then let's plug in the number 0 and the number 1. Plug in the number 0 into an XY table. 1/2 to the 0 is 1. 1 times -4 is -4. And -4 plus 9 is 5. So when you plug in a 0, you get out a 5. So go to the location 0, 5, put a dot right there. Now let's plug in a 1. Plug in a 1 right there. 1/2 to the 1 is 1/2. 1/2 times -4, that's like saying half of -4, that's -2. And -2 plus 9 is 7. So 1, 7. The input 1 give you the output 7. Put a dot right there, and there's your exponential decay function. This is a decay function because from left to right, it's decaying, the distance is decaying towards the asymptote. Let's move on. Once again, make an XY table, plug in 0 and 1, but before even doing that, you can move your asymptote to -6. So take this asymptote, move it to -6, leave it there. Now go ahead and plug in a 0 right there. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 times that a value of -3 is -3. -3 minus 6 is -9. So when you plug in a 0, you get out a -9. So take this first one that was at 0, 0, move it all the way down to -9. Okay, and well, that creates a problem. You see, the other point got lost. So let's go back up here. See how that point up there? Let's bring that point closer to that point. And now let's move this one down to 0, 9. That's 7, 8. There's 9. Okay. And now let's plug in the number 1. We already plugged in 0, got out of 9. Let's plug in a 1 right here. 1/3 to the 1 is 1/3. 1/3 times -3 is -3. And -3, well, that's not good. I apologize. 1/3 times -3, as you can see right here, is -1. The negative with the 1, so that's -1. And -1 minus 6 would give you a -7. So the input 1 gives you the output -7. I apologize for that mistake. Anyhow, you have your coordinate at 0, -9, and you have your other coordinate at 1, -7, 1, -7. That's -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it should be right there. So your coordinates should be here. Whoops, I'm sorry. Here and there. And then that would automatically produce this graph approaching that asymptote. So on this one, all we have to do is identify, step one, identify your asymptote y equals k, in this case, -6. So take that asymptote, which is currently at -2, bring it down to -6. Now all we need is 2 more points. So plug in a 0 into x, and we'll get a coordinate 0, comma something. So let's do that. Plug in a 0, 2/7 to the 0 is 1. 1 times 14 is 14. 14 take away 6 is 8. So 0, 8, you plugged in 0 into the x and you got out an 8. And again, you could do all this on the calculator, type all this out, put a 0 right here, and then -6, hit equal, and that'll give you an 8. So let's go to 0, 8, put a dot up there at 0, 8. Now go back and plug in a 1 right here. And again, you could do it with the calculator. I want to explain it right here. Plug in a 1, the 2/7 is still a 2/7. 2/7 to the 1 is 2/7. And then 2/7 times 14, well, that would be a 28 over 7, which is 4. Or you could say 14 divided by 7 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 minus 6 is -2. So when I plug in a 1, I get out a -2. So that's a location 1 on the x, -2 on the y, and that is all. Hit submit, you'll have your answer. Voila. Ladies and gentlemen, graphing on quizzes is way easier than graphing by hand. The first thing to do is simply identify that k value 4, right? So that will tell you your asymptote. The asymptote is a horizontal line, y equals k. In this case, it's y equals 4. So you take this asymptote that's already there and you just move it up to 4. Move it all the way up here to +4. There's +4 on the y-axis. Okay. After that, all you got to do is plug in 0 and plug in 1. Okay. So when you plug in 0, remember the input 0 is the x value. So let's plug in 0 and see what we get. Plug in a 0 up here, and I'm doing this all in our heads, right? Hopefully you guys understand. I'm not showing this on paper. Plugging in a 0, that would be 1/2 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So this whole thing is 1. So that's really a -8 times 1. That's -8, and -8 plus 4 is -4. So when I plug in a 0, I get out a -4. Let's go to the coordinate 0, -4. Drag that down. There we are, 0, -4. And then let's plug in a 1 into the x. Plug in a 1 right here. And 1/2 to the 1 is simply 1/2. 1/2 times -8, that's -4. And -4 plus 4 is 0. Okay, so if you're like, wait a minute, that was too much math, you could type all this into a calculator, plug in a 1 right there, type it all into a calculator. It will give you 0 as an answer when you type it into the whole thing. Okay, so what we have is the input 1 gave us the output 0. That is the coordinate 1, 0. That would be this location right there. So I have my 2 points, I have my asymptote, that's my graph. I am done. Check it out. Submit. Voila. That easy. Another one. Here we go. We have y equals 3, parentheses 4 over 3 to the power of x minus 5. Quickly make a xy table. Plug in 0, plug in 1. You already know your asymptote is at y equals -5. So you can start with that. Asymptote's at y equals k, which in this case is -5. Get that asymptote, move it down to -5. There it is. And now, again, go to your xy table, plug in 0. You could use a calculator, type in 3, parentheses, 4/3, close parentheses to the power of 0 minus 5. But we should all know that 4/3 to the power of 0, anything to the power of 0 is 1. So you really have 3 times 1 minus 5. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 5 is -2. So when you plug in a 0, you get out a -2, okay? So let's go to the location 0, -2. I've moved that from the 0, 0 to the 0, -2. So now let's go back to our xy table and let's plug in the next number 1 into that input. And 4/3 times 1 is 4/3, or not 4/3 times 1. 4/3 to the 1 power is 4/3, so that stays the same. But when you multiply a fraction by its denominator, that would cancel out and that'll just give you a 4, okay? So 3 times 4/3 is just 4, and 4 minus 5 is -1. So when you plug in a 1, you get out a -1. So here we are. Let's take that dot to the location 1, -1. There it is. And I am done. Just hit submit right there. And you got an A. Well, guys, this video is already long enough. Hopefully you already have all those examples, and hopefully you already understand how to graph exponential growth and decay functions on quizzes. See you on the next video.